Hi friends, today we are going to be working with clay. We're going to be creating what's called a pinch pot donut. So we're basically creating the structure of a donut or a sculpture, and underneath it will have a hollow core. And the reason for that is it allows more drying time, which is what we will be needing because we're using air dye clay. We want to be able to paint these the following week. If this were clay that we're needing to be fired in a kiln, which is a super hot oven, that basically bakes the clay, we would also need to be creating what's called a hollow core or a pinch pot, because if we do not, the pressure inside of the sculpture or clay piece, whatever you are making, there become little air pockets, and the air pockets cause so much pressure from being fired at the really high heat that it can actually create cracks and cause explosions inside the kiln, which means that your piece would not come out looking like what you wanted or intended. So to begin, as I said, we're working with air dry clay. So to begin, you're going to be given a baggie with a section of clay. You're going to divide it off. I would say a little bit more than half maybe is what you're going to use to build your actual donut. The other portion will become the decorative elements or the top pieces. So just move it off to the side. First thing you're going to do is you're going to shape your clay into a ball. You can either roll it in your hands, shaping it with both your hands, or you can roll it on the table, shaping it into a ball. It does not need to be a perfect ball. You just want to get it in the general shape. Now, to create what's called a pinch pot. So a pinch pot is kind of like what you would think the word describes. You're going to work from underside, and you're going to take your thumb and you're going to push down into it to create like a hollow center. Then you're going to take your thumb, working with both your thumb and your fingers, and you're going to pinch, going all the way around in a circle. The key is to create an even thickness around your clay. You can see some areas do a little bit of cracking. So the areas that do a little bit of cracking, you're simply going to smooth back over because you don't want it to crack too much. We're not going to worry too much about the cracking right now, but we do want to stop any small cracks before they become larger. So you can see I'm simply just smoothing it out with my hand. Then I'm continuing to work around, making sure that from the top I'm also creating the even amount of thickness going all the way around. Now, if we were just simply doing a pinch pot decorative bowl, we would be done. We could add decorative elements to it, but the basic shape of the pinch pot is like this. You've pinched around the clay that used to be in the shape of a ball, and you've created a hollow cavity area to turn it into a pot. Now, if we were designing something from the top, whether it be an animal or something like that, you would add all the decorative elements on right now. Since we are creating pinch pot donuts, most donuts have a hollow core. So I'm going to demonstrate how to create that hollow center. If you want to do a donut that does not, or something like a maple bar, you'll have to change and manipulate the clay and move it to the shape that you want. But I'm going to demonstrate the donut. So from here, because the donut has a hollow core, I'm going to take my thumb and actually push down, creating a hole in the very center. Then from the back, I'm going to pull that area out because I don't need that area, and I'm going to move it off to the side. Then I'm going to use both hands to continue to kind of push down. It might be a good idea at this point to put the clay on the surface of the table so it has the table as a bit of a resting ground. I'm going to flip it over, and you can see as I'm doing that, because I'm creating excess clay, pushing it down, I need to remove some of this. So from the inside, I'm just going to take some of the clay off that I don't need because I want to create that hollow core, so I don't want either of these sides to be touching one another. Okay. It doesn't have to look perfect from underneath because you're really not viewing it from this side, so you're just really viewing it from the top. So I'm pretty happy with the way it's looking. If I have any little cracking areas, I can smooth them out with my hand. Okay. Once you've created your donut, the actual shape of the donut, now we get to do the fun part, which is adding the decorative elements. So the decorative elements are maybe some toppings or some fun things on the donut. You can see on this donut, I created a layer of almost like a glaze, and then I added some sprinkles. Here's the thing about clay that people don't realize. A lot of people think that you can simply take a piece of clay and just set it on, which you can. Right now it sticks because the clay is moist, but as the clay dries, it will no longer stick and it will simply just flake right off. So what we need to do is we need to use a method called slip and score. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take some of the clay that I had off to the side, and I think I want to create a layer of the glaze or the topping for the donut. So I'm going to take a section. Maybe I'll move my donut off to the side. I'm going to roll it out. Now I'm going to flatten it because, again, I want it to be thin. So I'm basically, the general idea of what I'm doing is I'm creating it and then I'll layer it around the top. And I may need to add more, and that's okay. So I'll demonstrate that, the process of adding more. So I want that to be kind of thin. Now again, what I had said is if I simply just lay it on top as it dries, it's going to just crack right off. So there's a method called slip and score. Slip is wet moisture you create that moistens it's by using water, adding it to the clay. It creates moisture within the area and it makes it sticky. It's almost like a glue. And then scoring is when you take a clay tool and you make marks along the area that you want to attach. You can make straight lines, you can make cross hatching, which is lines going across the top of each other. I think for what I'm doing, simply scoring it by making just random straight and sort of angled lines will be just fine. By making these indentations and by creating wetness on the piece that I want to attach it to, it's almost like creating little locks and grooves within. So when I add some water into those areas, and when I add my clay that's been moistened with the slip onto those areas, it's almost like creating an element of glue that binds the two together. So now I'm just going to work, and with clay, as you're working along, you'll get bumps and you'll get cracks. Your fingers and your hands are really the best clay building tools that you have. So you can see as I go around, I'm using my thumb to smooth out my clay. I want it to sort of fuse together, so I'm pushing down with my fingers into the clay, into the center. And from the outside, I've created some depth. I've created another dimension, which is the layer of my glaze or my frosting. I smooth it out. Anytime you have cracks, those cracks will show up as it dries if you don't smooth them out. Now if I wanted to add a few little frost or little sprinkles, again I need to slip and score. So it's much smaller, so you'll make little indentations of where you want them to be. Then you'll take some of the pieces of clay that you have, shape them into the shape that you want, dip a little bit of water with them, and stick those on. Okay, you can see that working with clay is really a lot of fun to do. It's very different from Play-Doh. It feels very different. It dries differently. It's much stronger in structure. But by learning the basic fundamental of the pinch pot, it opens up to a lot of different opportunities and things that you can create out of clay. So you can see that I am halfway through the process of working with this one. This one is complete. I will let it air dry, and then the next week we will talk about painting our clay donuts.